Hello and welcome to Quiz Time. My name is Dave and I will be your host today. And we have some great questions about literature. So are you ready? Here we go. Here's question number 1. In which novel would you find the character Ebenezer Scrooge? Great Expectations, Oliver Twist, or A Christmas Carol? A Christmas Carol. Which classic novel is set during the Russian Napoleonic Wars and follows the life of Pierre Bezukhov? Anna Karenina, War and Peace, Crime and Punishment? War and Peace. Who is the author of Wuthering Heights? Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, or Emily Bronte? Emily Bronte. What is the name of the island in Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island? Skeleton Island. In which novel does the character Jean Valjean appear? Great Expectations, The Count of Monte Cristo, or Les Miserables? Les Miserables. Which Dickens novel features the character Pip and his encounters with the convict Magwitch? Great Expectations, The Count of Monte Cristo, or Les Miserables? Great Expectations. Which classic novel tells the story of Edmond Dantes, who seeks revenge against those who wronged him? The Count of Monte Cristo. Which 1886 novella unravels the psychological exploration of the duality of human nature? The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Who wrote the Gothic novella The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? H.G. Wells, Bram Stoker, or Robert Louis Stevenson? Robert Louis Stevenson. Who is the author of the Gothic horror tale Dracula, first published in 1897? H.G. Wells, Bram Stoker, or Robert Louis Stevenson? Bram Stoker. Which classic novel is a satirical critique of the society of its time and follows the adventures of Lemuel Gulliver? Gulliver's Travels. Who is the author of Little Women? Louisa May Alcott, Jane Austen, or Jane Austen? Louisa May Alcott. Which Shakespeare play features the character Othello? Othello. Who manipulates Othello with false accusations in the play Othello? Iago, Cassio, or Desdemona? Iago. Who is Othello's wife, a Venetian woman of noble birth? Iago, Cassio, or Desdemona? Desdemona. What is the military rank of Othello? lieutenant, general, or captain? General. Which of Joseph Conrad's work explores the darkness within human nature and the consequences of European colonialism in Africa? Heart of Darkness. In Heart of Darkness, what river symbolizes the journey into the dark heart of human nature and colonial exploitation? Congo River. Who is the protagonist and narrator in Heart of Darkness? Charles Marlowe, Mr. Kurtz, or Joseph Conrad? Charles Marlowe. Who is the enigmatic ivory trader symbolizing human darkness in The Heart of Darkness? Mr. Dark, Mr. Shadow, or Mr. Kurtz? Mr. Kurtz. Who wrote the novel The Scarlet Letter? Nathaniel Hawthorne, Edgar Allan Poe, or Herman Melville? Nathaniel Hawthorne. In The Scarlet Letter, who is the central character condemned to wear the embroidered symbol of her sin? Roger Chillingsworth, Hester Prynne, or Arthur Dimmesdale? Hester Prynne. What is the embroidered symbol that Hester Prynne is required to wear as punishment? The letter H, the letter P, or the letter A? The letter A. Who is the father of Hester Prynne's child, Pearl? Reverend Arthur Dimmesdale, Roger Chillingsworth, or Governor Bellingham? Reverend Arthur Dimmesdale. Who is Hester's estranged husband who seeks revenge on her lover? Reverend Arthur Dimmesdale, Roger Chillingsworth, or Governor Bellingham? Roger Chillingworth. Which novel would you find the characters Scout Finch and her father Atticus Finch? To Kill a Mockingbird, The Catcher in the Rye, or Lord of the Flies? To Kill a Mockingbird. Which romantic poet penned the famous lines, "I wandered lonely as a cloud"? Emily Dickinson, Percy Bysshe Shelley, or William Wordsworth? William Wordsworth. In which poem do the opening lines read, "Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me"? Because I could not stop for death. Who wrote the poem Because I Could Not Stop for Death? Emily Dickinson, Percy Bysshe Shelley, William Wordsworth? Emily Dickinson. What epic poem explores the fall of man and the rebellion of Satan? Paradise Lost, The Wasteland, or Garden of Never? Paradise Lost. Who wrote the epic poem Paradise Lost? John Donne, John Milton, or Samuel Taylor Coleridge? John Milton. Which T.S. Eliot poem explores cultural disillusionment for a longing for spiritual renewal? Paradise Lost, The Wasteland, Garden of Never. The Wasteland. In The Wasteland, what mythical figure is associated with the quest for the Holy Grail? Oedipus, Tiresias, or Fisher King? Fisher King. What is the famous opening line of the poem The Wasteland? I sing the body electric. April is the cruelest month. Do not go gentle into that good night. April is the cruelest month. In which poem does Robert Frost ponder the choice of taking the less traveled path into the woods? Stopping by Woods, The Road Not Taken, Earth and Water. The Road Not Taken. Who wrote the sonnet sequence Sonnets from the Portuguese? Sylvia Plath, Christina Rossetti, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Which romantic poet is known for works like Ode to a Nightingale and To Autumn? Lord Byron, John Keats, or William Blake? John Keats. What does the raven repeatedly say in the poem The Raven? Nevermore, forevermore, or evermore? Nevermore. Who is known for his war poetry, including Dulce et Decorum Est? W.B. Yeats, Wilfred Owen, or Rupert Brooke? Wilfred Owen. Which Irish poet wrote the iconic poem The Second Coming? W.B. Yeats, Wilfred Owen, or Rupert Brooke? W.B. Yeats. Which American poet wrote the collection Leaves of Grass? Emily Dickinson, Langston Hughes, Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman. Which prominent figure of the Harlem Renaissance is known for his impactful poetry? Emily Dickinson, Langston Hughes, or Walt Whitman? Langston Hughes. What form of poetry has 14 lines and a specific rhyme scheme frequently used by Shakespeare? Haiku, villanelle, or sonnet? Sonnet. What form of poetry has 19 lines with 5 3-line stanzas followed by a concluding 4-line stanza? Haiku, villanelle, or sonnet? Villanelle. What term is used to call a 3-line stanza? A tercet. What term is used to call a 6-line stanza? A sestet. What term is used to call a 7-line stanza? Accept it. What French poetry form is composed of 15 lines? A quatern, a rondeau, or a rondeau prime? A rondeau. Name Kipling's poem about resilience, starting with "If You Can Keep Your Head." If. In the poem If by Rudyard Kipling, what does the poet advise readers to treat triumph and disaster as? Imposters, inevitabilities, or illusions? Imposters. Which poet is known for her unconventional style and themes as seen in Daddy? Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton, or Maya Angelou? Sylvia Plath. Who wrote the historical novel Eye of the Needle? Hilary Mantel, Philippa Gregory, or Ken Follett? Ken Follett. Which novel by James Clavell is set in feudal Japan and follows the life of an English sailor, John Blackthorne? Shogun, Sengoku, or Ajin? Shogun. Who wrote The Other Boleyn Girl, centered around the life of Mary Boleyn during the Tudor period? Hilary Mantel, Philippa Gregory, or Ken Follett? Philippa Gregory. Who narrates the novel The Book Thief, giving the book a unique perspective for the readers? German soldier, Jewish prisoner, or death? Death. What historical novel recounts a physician's experiences in 1970s Uganda under Idi Amin's rule? The Other Side of the Bridge, The Constant Gardener, or The Last King of Scotland? The Last King of Scotland. Who wrote the novel The Last King of Scotland? Mary Lawson, John le Carré, or Gilles Faudin? Gilles Faudin. Who wrote the novel The Constant Gardener? Mary Lawson, John le Carré, or Gilles Faudin? John le Carré. In the novel The Fair Pavilions by MMK, what is the setting for much of the story's action? America, England, or India? India. What is the title of the historical novel by Hilary Mantel that depicts the life of Thomas Cromwell? Wolf Hall. Which of Ken Follett's novels mainly tells the story of a monk driven to build the most magnificent Gothic cathedral in the world? The Pillars of the Earth. In the novel The Nightingale, set in France during World War II, two sisters play significant roles in the resistance. Who is the author? Kristen Hanna. Who is the author of the historical novel I, Claudius, which is set in the form of an autobiography? Robert Graves, Anita Diamant, or Marcus Zusak? Robert Graves. In 1936 novel is set during the American Civil War and the Reconstruction era. Rhett Butler's People, Gone with the Wind, The Civil War, A History. Gone with the Wind. Irving Stone's The Agony and the Ecstasy chronicles the life of which famous Renaissance artist? Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, or Raphael? Michelangelo. Who is the author of the historical novel The Tattooist of Auschwitz, inspired by a true story? Anthony Doerr, Heather Morris, or Kristen Hanna? Heather Morris. What is Geraldine Brooks' novel that explores the father's experiences in Little Women during the Civil War? March, Caleb's Crossing, or People of the Book? March. What prestigious literary award did Geraldine Brooks receive for March in 2006? Man Booker Prize, National Book Award, Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. Who is the author of the historical novel The Girl with the Pearl Earring? Tracy Chevalier, Philippa Gregory, or Hilary Mantel? Tracy Chevalier. In Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, who is the proud and wealthy bachelor who captured Elizabeth Bennet's heart? Mr. Darcy. What is the name of Elizabeth Bennet's sister who is also her confidant? Jane, Charlotte, or Caroline? Jane. Jane Bennet eventually becomes engaged to who? Fitzwilliam Darcy, Charles Bingley, or Edward Lucas? Charles Bingley. What initially leads to the misunderstanding and prejudice between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth? Mistaken identity, Mr. Darcy's aloof demeanor, or class differences? Mr. Darcy's aloof demeanor. Who wrote Long Walk to Freedom, chronicling the fight against apartheid in South Africa? Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, or Martin Luther King Jr.? Nelson Mandela. In the Wuthering Heights novel, who originally owned Wuthering Heights? Mr. Earnshaw, Heathcliff, or Hindley? Mr. Earnshaw. What is the name of the neighboring estate in Wuthering Heights owned by Edgar Linton? Wuthering Grange, Earnshaw Manor, or Thrushcross Grange? Thrushcross Grange. Who narrates parts of the story in Wuthering Heights, serving as a bystander and a witness to the events? Joseph, Nellie Dean, Mr. Knockwood? Nellie Dean. What is the overall setting of Wuthering Heights? London, Cornwall, or Yorkshire Moors? Yorkshire Moors. Who wrote the autobiography, The Diary of a Young Girl, documenting her experiences hiding from the Nazis during World War II? Anne Frank. What is the name of Anne that the name Anne gives her diary? Kitty, Daisy, Bella. Kitty. When was Het Achterhuis published? June 25th, 1947, July 27th, 1957, April 22nd, 1959. June 25th, 1947. Which African American activist and author penned the autobiography The Souls of Black Folk, addressing racial issues in the United States? W.E.B. Du Bois. What term does Du Bois coin for the impact of racism on African American psychology and society? Double vision, dual perspective, double consciousness. Double consciousness. According to Du Bois, what is the talented tenth in The Souls of Black Folk? The spirit of the ancestors, the vanguard of social justice, or the educated African American? The educated African American. Which astronaut wrote An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth? Chris Hadfield, Buzz Aldrin, or Neil Armstrong? Chris Hadfield. What is one of the best-selling science books of all time written by Carl Sagan? Cosmos, Mars and its Canals, Outlines of Astronomy. Cosmos. What is the title of the heartwarming short story about a couple's selfless acts of love during Christmas? The Joy of Giving, The Gift of the Magi, or Love's Sacrifice? The Gift of the Magi. Who is the author of the touching short story titled The Gift of the Magi? Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, O. Henry? O. Henry. What are the names of the couple? Della and Jim, Tom and Emily, David and Sarah? Della and Jim. What valuable possession does Della sell to buy a gift for Jim? Her jewelry, her hair, her dress? Her hair. What does Jim sell to buy a gift for Della? His watch, his guitar, or his car? His watch. What is the main theme or message conveyed in The Gift of the Magi? Sacrifice and love, wealth and prosperity, Christmas spirit? Sacrifice and love. What is the central theme of the short story The Necklace by Guy de Maupassant? Love and betrayal, the pursuit of wealth, supernatural elements? The pursuit of wealth. What compels the narrator to commit murder in Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart? Fear of the dark, the old man's eye, desire for revenge? The Old Man's Eye. What eventually drives the narrator to confess to the murder in The Telltale Heart? The police investigation, hallucinations of the man, the beating of a heart. The beating of a heart. What short story features a man becomes the prey in a deadly hunt on a remote island? The Lottery, The Cask of Amontillado, The Most Dangerous Game. The Most Dangerous Game. Who wrote the short story The Most Dangerous Game? Shirley Jackson, Richard Connell, Edgar Allan Poe. Richard Connell. What is the name of the island owned by General Zaroff, where the deadly hunting game takes place? Ship Trap Island, Skull Island, Predator Isle. Ship Trap Island. Who is the protagonist in The Most Dangerous Game? Ivan, Rainsford, or Whitney? Rainsford. In A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor, which notorious criminal do the characters encounter? Billy the Kid, Al Capone, the Misfit. The Misfit. That was our last question. Go ahead and add up your score. Put your score in the comments below so we see how well you did. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you again on Quiz Time.